All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Built in the Bayou. Today's a fun one. This is our first ever off-the-grid episode, so obviously we're not at the home studio. We are in Leadville, Colorado on Colt Summer Camp Adventure, so we're getting a podcast out here with Mr. Colt himself. Colt, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me in the one of the tiny homes in Leadville.
Yeah, thanks for booking these little tiny homes for us so we could come to summer camp for the week.
Yeah, it was fun.
Best summer camp ever, wasn't it?
Absolutely, best summer camp, yeah.
Best summer camp you've ever been to.
Yeah.
First time they ever let me drive a Jeep at summer camp, right? We can go do things and break things. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, Colt, that opens us up for some questions. So for the people who know Colt Builds It and don't really know who Colt is, why don't you tell us about Colt and what took you this direction? How it all started?
Well, it started because I've always been a gearhead. Even when I was a kid, it was kind of embedded to me with my dad. My dad was a gearhead. He worked on airplanes in the Air Force Academy, in the Air Force, and he was using parts at the machine shop making chromoly tie rods when chromoly tie rods weren't a thing.
That's cool.
Nice.
So that kind of stuff, just like innovation and creating something of your own that's better. He kind of brought that into my brain. Now, as far as like working on stuff, as I got older, like me and my friends, we lived in the mountains, so we lived not too far from here, and there's no arcades, there's no skate parks, there's no, no
PS2s.
Yeah. So that's what we did. We worked on cars, and my dad had a decent amount of tools. A few of my other buddies' dads had a decent amount of tools. None of them really showed us how to work on anything. I think they were more like they would just let us use the tools, and then get mad at us for not putting them away later. But so sometimes I think it was entertaining for him because he's probably was like watching me like that's totally not going to work and that's going to be fun, or it was like, hey, this might actually, that's actually a really good idea. Let's see if it pans out. So that's kind of what kind of got me started in just working on cars and doing stuff. First big project I guess I could say I ever did was right in the early years of high school. In Colorado, you could drive at 15 at the time if you took a driver's ed course, and so I'd been driving way before that, obviously, but legally, I guess, on the road. And the first big project I did on my spring break, I had a little S10 Blazer with a 2.5 Iron Duke in it, and I found another S10 that had been wrecked that had a 2.8, and I was like, man, that V6 is going to have way more power, right? And come to find out, between 87, which was the first year of fuel injection, and 89, which is only 2 years later, GM changed a bunch of stuff. Like the transmissions were different. The speedometer worked electronically versus off a cable. So when I thought I was just going to be changing maybe a bell housing and a motor, I ended up having to change the entire drivetrain, engine, transmission, T-case, pull the dash out, change the entire wiring harness. Yeah. So I lost my entire spring break, the entire week, doing this engine swap. And I get it in there, and I go to take off down the road, and the thing had less power than it did with the 2.5.
Oh my gosh!
It's like, well, there's that.
That's that trial and error stuff. Right? It's like, it didn't work. We're gonna back up and punt and start over.
Yep. So that was one of those, just one of those things. You live and you learn. But I definitely. When people say, well, how did you learn that? Through failure. Yeah. I learn a lot through failure.
That's where we learn some of our best lessons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You got to make some mistakes to figure out how you're going to work.
Yeah. So were you guys, have you always been into four-wheeling?
Yeah, always was into four-wheeling. My dad raced. So at one time, he was the president of the Colorado Hillclimb Association.
Okay.
He's a big part of the off-road clubs. I'm a pretty big advocate for off-road clubs that are actively doing stuff. There's a lot of off-road clubs out there that aren't. Usually when clubs reach out to me, now that people know who I am. They want me to, be part of their club. And I'm like, well, because there's a lot of associate memberships. You can be an
Right,
associate
yeah.
member of a club without having to be there. And my biggest questions are usually like, well, what's the last trail you've maintained, or what's the last trail you've opened, or what's the last trail you've protected from closure, or things like that. I have a little list at home that I kind of go down. And sometimes those clubs are just like, well, we get together on Saturday and go four-wheeling,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, that's just a wheeling group. Like, that's not advocacy to keep trails open. I think that's where clubs have an importance is to keep trails open, because the Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management, they don't recognize entities or single entities. So like, I had hours and hours and hours logged of working on a trail that ultimately got closed, and I went to the hearing for all this when it was going down, and they actually told me, hey, we don't recognize any of your hours. Like, we don't care, because you're not an associated group. You're not part of this. So I learned then how important clubs are, even though a lot of people don't like clubs, things like that, that they're really, really important to keeping trails open. So usually when there's a club out there that, because everybody thinks immediately just a Blue Ribbon Coalition, stay the trail, tread lightly, things like that. But realistically, like, there's a lot of clubs out there that are doing a lot of good work, and they're the reason we can enjoy the sport we have. And so it's that thing is kind of really important to me as well.
Absolutely.
Right. You want to join a club with a purpose, not just some good old boys hanging out on the weekends, but hey, we're actually out here working on the trails. This means something to us. We want to keep this alive for generations. Like, we want our kids to be able to go on these trails just like you are. But in order to do that, we got to put in the work.
Yep. So that was, Shannon and I we were dating in high school. We were early starters. We had our daughter in high school. And so needless to say, young family, young parents, you don't have a whole lot of money. Yeah. So we lived in a trailer about this size that I had to take a loan out. It was a 1964 trailer. I couldn't even stand up in it. The roof was too short.
Wow.
And couldn't. I'd take a loan out. It was $4,000, and I remember taking a loan out and thinking, how am I going to pay for this?
Right.
Like, I have no idea how I'm going to pay for this trailer. And there were even times that it came with the lot rent came with electricity and water, but it didn't come with propane. Well, when you live in the mountains, propane's like the most important part of your heat. And so there were times where we couldn't afford propane, and we would bundle up our daughter. We didn't have Ian yet, but we'd bundle up Kayla, and it was like a closet. That's where her crib was. And so I put one of those like oil electric heaters, with the fins on it. And we would put that in front of that door. I'd drain all the water in the house so pipes wouldn't freeze. Yeah. And then we'd bundle up with her in between us, and that's where we'd sleep at night. And so I loved off-roading, but I was like, man, how can I do this as something I want to do with my family and still be able to pay bills? Right, so that's when I really learned how to fix cars where I could flip them. Yeah. So for me, it was Cherokees. There's a lot of little quirks with Cherokees that I learned. I mean, just bam, 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 bam. The older ones especially, because like pre-YouTube, now anybody can look up, hey, I got this problem, and it tells you what to do. But like back then, I had the Cherokees, the early Cherokees, the Renix editions, so anything like 90 and older. The 4-liter, the lower radiator hose has a coil in it. Right. So guys would have overheating issues. I mean, Cherokees are already kind of prone to having that issue, but they'd be having these overheating issues. They meant, man, I changed the radiator, I changed the hose. They'll change the upper hose. The lower one's hard to get to, so they'd change the upper hose. They'd change the thermostat. They'd change out the clutch fan or whatever. And I just want to get rid of it. And I bought one Cherokee once for $1. $1.
Just say it's been sold.
Goodness.
A running one that they couldn't figure out. And most of them, I'd get them anywhere from $250 to $1,000. And a lot, like I said, a lot of times that radiator hose, because the coil in it, it felt like it was good. But when
Right.
you actually look down it, if you cut it in half, it'd be collapsed inside the coil. The inner liner of that radiator hose had just collapsed inside of itself. So that, you know, and then obviously like the crank position sensors are pretty common on those. Sometimes the relays, there was 3 relays up on the up on the fender well inside, and one of them ran the fuel pump, but they would just get a little warm and they would shut off. And if you just flip the relays, all of a sudden they'd work again. So just little quirks like that. And so I would buy them, fix them as cheap as I could, you know, with whatever it needed to make it run right, and then sell them. And that's how I supported my off-road habits. So my job wasn't taking away from food on the table or anything like that.
Right.
It was my side hustle that was allowing us to be able to
do what you
build
love.
vehicles and go forward. And and then that's how we took vacations with the kids. I mean, kids have never been to Disneyland, but they've been to the Rubicon Trail.
Yeah.
You know, so that was kind of the thing. We would just go out and go camping. You know, camping costs nothing really, you know, and you know, sleep in the woods. And then we just go out and go play. And that's how the kids were raised, is 4-wheeling and playing in the woods.
That's awesome. What was your first like off-road rig?
Well, so my very first vehicle was a Ford Tempo that wouldn't stay running, and
You didn't off-road.
oh yeah, I didn't even it didn't yeah, and I did not off. Well, I tried to off-road it, I'll be honest. And the car would just die going down the road, and we even took it to. There's one of the most winningest father-son combo on Pikes Peak, the Vascholts. They're big time blue oval boys, and I even took it to them, and they couldn't figure it out. They're like, so it's like, when you guys are like the Ford guys in the area and well known for it, and you can't figure it out, this car is poo.
Yeah.
So then I built that S10, wheeled it a little bit, and then I just got into Cherokees, and then Cherokees and Comanches. But I was one of those guys that I always wanted to let's see what this vehicle does. So So I'd sell that one, and then I'd build a Blazer or build a Bronco or build whatever I could find. I built, you know, Dodge pickups, and you know, at the time you could pick, you know, COVID kind of ruined the cost of vehicles, but if you're, you know, adamant in your Thrifty Nickel, or, you know, your little nickel newspaper, you'd see good deals on cars, or, you know, Craigslist, which neither one of those really pretty much exist anymore.
And now we have Marketplace, and that's a problem, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah. I don't know how many hours I lose in Marketplace, but it's a lot.
Facts.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite rig out of all of them?
Well, I'll tell you this. I got a couple rigs that I wish I'd have never got rid of. I have I built a 72 K5 Blazer, and this was like right at like late 90s, early 2000s, and I put I found a guy that had a brand new crate 350. He didn't know what he wanted. Had been sitting, and the truck he was going to put it in, he sold the truck or something. I picked it up for pennies on the dollar. Kind of the same deal for the transmission. I had an Off-Road Designs 203, 205 that I picked up off of Craigslist.
Awesome.
And 3/4 ton axles, and the truck had no dents, but it had what we would consider now beautiful patina, like absolutely beautiful patina. At that time, patina was not popular.
Yeah.
And I was always just afraid to dent it. And I liked wheeling it. I had it on 35-inch tires, and I liked wheeling it, but I was always afraid to like dent it, you know? So I ended up selling it to a guy, and all he did was take it down to Mako and had a $200 paint job put on it. And then I think he sold it on eBay for like $10,000, which just,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, killed me internally.
Oh my gosh.
You know, because I think I sold to him for like, you know, I don't know, $2,000. But you know, like I said, cars were cheap. You know,
Right.
I picked up crazy vehicles at good prices. You know, you pick up a Chevelle for $1,500 and you pick up just cool cars, you know.
Yeah.
And so even in the car realm, they were just affordable. Different, you know, different time, but that's one car I wish I would have never got rid of. That one I think I could have just kept it and drove it and
Just held on to it.
Yeah, I got a, you know, like I said, I got a couple of those in my brain, but that one
stands out.
Yeah, that one was a big one.
And I know you sent me some pictures of some Jeeps that maybe your dad owned or something way back when. Were you kind of ever into Jeeps, or do you just kind of go the?
Oh yeah, no, I was totally into Jeeps. I just could never afford a Wrangler. Wranglers were. I was the you know, the black sheep with the Cherokees and the square headlights.
Absolutely, yeah.
But they were just cheap, you know, and you know, so yeah, Wranglers were nice. My dad had Wrangler, and yeah, we put, you know. Yeah, even in those old pictures, you see all the bright red coils in there and all that stuff. Like my dad was a big time. He loved Skyjacker, and so yeah, we had a lot of Skyjacker stuff. That's pretty much well. And then even in the Cherokee realm, you know, yeah, we put lift kits of his stuff, but even in the Cherokee realm, like Skyjacker was the only one that ever made an 8-inch coil, 6-inch and 8-inch coil. They're the first ones to do the 6-inch. They were the only ones to do an 8-inch coil for the Cherokees, and so yeah, it was pretty standard. Even if I was building, you know, at the time I was even trying to make my own long arm kits. I couldn't afford the whole rock ready kit. I wanted it. Trust me, I wanted it. But I ended up doing. I'd make my own long arms, and I would do the 8-inch coils and the 8-inch Nitro 8000s or 9000s, whatever they were. Yeah. And then the Skyjacker leaf springs, because it's
awesome.
like, and the Pitman arm, the drop Pitman arm, because they were the only ones that had the drop Pitman arm too.
And that was the Cherokee was Dad's first off-road rig too, because at the time it was only 2-door Wranglers, and you know Dad had 4 kids,
right?
And then I came later on, but then so he was like, I got to take my kids wheeling, and it had a back seat, and so that's where all that came from, was just Dad needing that for room for family.
Yeah, we tried. So Shanna's first car, my wife's first car, when we first started dating, she had a Scout 80. And her dad sold it while we were at school. And she had so much work into that thing. The thing was just mint. But it just had that 4-cylinder, that slant 4. And so later on, I would say, gosh, the kids were teenagers, young teenagers, maybe preteen. And I picked up another Scout, built another Scout, and we tried to go camping in it. And even as big as those Scouts look, when you have, you know, I'm 6'5", right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so me, my wife, 2 very well growing kids, a dog, and all your camping gear. I had about a 1 foot by 1 foot window to look out the windshield. I'm like, this is not going to work. Like we had to kind of stick with full sizes when the kids were a little older, but yeah, Cherokees were where I was at. I wheeled a lot of Cherokees. I built a couple. One of the rigs that I built that I started really doing the hardcore wheeling with, the first rig that I did a 2-door Cherokee, and you know, unibodies don't really like 1-tons. I mean, I could brace and plate and brace and plate, but it just starts fatiguing them. It doesn't matter how, you know, if you're wheeling them hard, they'll remind you they're a unibody. And so I ended up building a Toyota 4Runner. You know, when I did leaf springs, I kept it low slung. Found a set of 1-ton axles and under a guy's truck, a farmer's truck out in the field, and got them for dirt cheap, basically just for the cost of pulling them, and built my axles and you know, it was that 4Runner, when I got rid of it, was a raisin. There was no straight panel on it.
You didn't mind beating on that one.
But oh yeah, but I wheeled some hard stuff with that. Like you know, what most people consider some of the hardest buggy trails, like out in Colorado here in western Colorado, there's a trail called Boulder Canyon, and up in the Black Hills, there's one called Captain Crunch, and I'm pretty sure I'm one of the very few people that took a leaf sprung rig through those trails.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
so.
Cool.
yeah, when people say my S10, they're like, man, that thing just wheels so good on leaf springs. It's like, well, I got a lot of leaf spring experience. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, it's not a good truck, but it would wheel way better on links and coils or coilovers or something. I mean, that's still, you can do it on leaf springs.
Absolutely.
There's still a budget way to get into this sport.
Yep.
And have a good time.
Well, you look at Jeff, a White Scout. He's
Right.
running leaf springs front and rear.
Yeah.
And he's doing everything we're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
exactly.
that kind of brings us to a good next question here. So you've built a lot of rigs. You've built some cool rigs, and you have a great community and a great following. And the Jeep groups and everything, or the groups and everything like that. So over the years, what would you say is harder to build, the perfect rig, or building the community that you've built?
Honestly, I would think realistically, I would honestly say it's probably harder to build the rig, because with the community, I don't know. For me, I feel like God always has a plan for everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yes.
And he allows things to happen, whether good or bad, but he'll never put us through anything we can't handle.
Amen.
I hope that none of us ever have to go through all the stuff that Job went through, because I don't think I could handle that.
No.
But and God knows that.
He knows he's only going to give you what you can handle.
But when you're talking about authenticity, I mean, I've had a lot of opportunities as I've grown this channel and grown a following. You get a lot of people behind the scenes that want to offer you a lot of money to push things, and there's a lot of things that I just don't believe in or don't.
Yep.
And I feel like that shows, as because people can kind of see through the crap,
Right.
Yeah.
And so as they see people jumping around like, hey, this is the best. Oh no, now this is the best. Oh no, now this is the best at every 6 months, because that's the person giving them the most money.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are starting to become a lot more wise to that.
Yeah.
And seeing that. So that's kind of one of the things that I just feel like I won't, I don't want to do that. I know I could make more money, but when you've been completely broke, you really don't have anything to worry about.
Right.
Like, it's like, what's the worst case scenario? I'm back in a 1964 trailer sleeping in a closet, like, whatever.
Yeah. And that's,
But building the perfect rig is hard. Like, because every time you build one, every single time, I don't care how many times you build something, you're like, the next time I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do this. Every single time. I have still yet to ever build anything like that has everything I want in every direction I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, and I think that says a lot about you, though, because obviously building a rig is hard, but you have the personality, who you genuinely are. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
You're loyal, and people see that in you. So therefore, you're going to have a great community because they see that, and they're going to be drawn to you because it's natural. It's like, yeah, this guy don't sell out. He runs good products. He's not going to run what tears up, because I've been around him. If it's going to break, he's not going to want it on his rig. So he's definitely not going to sell it. So money's not the issue. He's not going to sell out. So therefore, the community aspect, I could see that being super easy, because I'm like, oh, that's Colt. I mean, that's a good dude.
Yeah. Well, and I think to build off that, like you touched on authenticity, the people who are jumping around, their words lose their value.
Absolutely.
And it's like, when you have somebody like you, it's like that, you can trust what you're saying.
Well, I grew up on handshake deals, and and your word is your bond.
Sometimes that's all you got.
Yeah. I never had, I don't have a college education. I mean, I do have a couple associate's degrees for different little small things, but that even in the world today, they only consider that a high school diploma.
Yeah.
That's not saying I'm not smart.
Yeah,
I did actually graduate high school 6
very
months.
smart.
Yeah, I did graduate high school 6 months early, because I knew exactly what I needed to do to get out, and I just didn't find school. I like learning things, but I like learning what I want to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
I felt like for me, public school wanted me to learn what they wanted me to learn, and I wanted to learn what I wanted to learn. Like, we didn't have automotive class, and it's like, man, that's you want to see me get straight A's? Let me work on an engine. Let me do, let me build this stuff. Let me do something here that this is what I want to do. And that's, I was always a blue collar kid, I guess. I really liked, I enjoyed being out, getting my hands dirty.
Let me work with my hands.
And being able to show something that I've created. Like, I made this, bam, and set it out there. And that's something that I've always just enjoyed doing. So even when, I thought when I was younger, I wanted to work on cars for a living. And so I started working at 4 Wheel Parts before they had sold out, before the Adlers had sold to Transamerica and everything. And basically that was in the era of the TJ.
Yeah.
And so I put a lot of gears and a lot of Jeep Wranglers and a lot of TJ lift kits, a lot of just 2 and 3 inch lift kits. And so I learned real quick how to do things fast and how to make them good, because I didn't want anybody to come back with gears. You never want to have to have gears.
No, we don't want that at all.
No.
Yeah. So, I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of gear sets I put in vehicles at that time. And then, and it was great for me because I would get takeoffs, right? These cars would come in. They were brand new.
Right.
And it's like, hey, even though that shock, it doesn't fit my rig, I will make that shock fit my rig, because that's a brand new shock. Because I put new shocks on it because they wanted a bigger lift.
Mm-hmm.
So that part was nice. I just realized that I wanted to work on my stuff more than other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And but I learned a lot of tricks, with doing a lot of that, just little tips and tricks and things. And then, like I said, through my own failures. And then I try to listen, when I've been around somebody that's been around the block, and I watch, especially somebody that's like has built a lot of things.
Yeah.
If I, I'll just sponge up what they're doing. I'll watch them in a shop and I'll just sponge up what they're doing. So, one of my buddies, Pat Helgeson, one of my good buddies, he's made a really successful life. He never even finished high school, but he became a welder, owned a welding business, and has a very successful life. Now he's, retired, but when we work on stuff, or he'd be working on stuff, I just watch how he's metalworking and how he's doing things. And it's like, oh, that's a cool trick, Oh, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to do that. Yeah. And so there's things you learn from people like that where, you can just watching them, if it's something you're interested in, you really want to, you're going to soak it in. And, and a lot of people don't know who Pat is, but like, to give you Dave Freiberger from like Roadkill, his real popular military scrambler, Pat built that originally. So like that was, it was in magazines, and it was like, flat bellied. A lot of people don't realize like there was a lot of cool tricks in that leaf sprung scrambler that he built. So he has I always joke with him. I'm like, you're the most famous person I know. He built a lot of rigs for people, built a lot of things for people, like really high-end parts and things for people that nobody knows about. I mean, he's built fuel tanks for custom buggies, big buggy companies and things like that. So yeah, he's but yeah, just paying attention to stuff like that. Even when I'm in, old machine shops, I'll just pay attention to what these guys are doing. Because a lot of these guys have been around the block, same thing. They've learned lessons through mistakes. It's like, if I can learn something from them and not have to make that mistake and keep my fingers and toes, like I'm stoked. Yeah.
Don't do that way.
Yeah.
We'll call him Stubby for nothing.
Right.
Yeah. So you said you worked at 4 Wheel Parts. I know you also worked in the oil field, correct?
Yeah. So I was never afraid of working. I mean, even when I was in 4 Wheel Parts, like I was still buying and flipping vehicles, right? So I had 2 jobs. So when it made the most sense when I was like, oil field, they work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, but they work, 12 and a half hour days. I have no problem with that. Like that, I'm already doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got into the oil field, and that, you know, I'm gonna be honest. I love the oil field for giving me the opportunities it did. I never really enjoyed the job.
All right.
It was a job it was a job.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy
It paid the
job.
bills.
It absolutely paid the
Yep.
bills, and it gave me the chance to come home and be with my kids. Even though I missed half, I was there for half.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're there for half. So I was able to, I had days where I could actually work on a rig, not just a weekend, and I could finish something out quick. And I learned the faster I could get it done, the faster we go out and use it, and then, that's what kind of pushed us into homeschooling the kids, because then once we homeschooled them, it's like, hey, dad's home for 2 weeks. We're going to go wheeling Oregon.
Yeah.
Or we're going to go wheeling out here, wheeling out there. And so that was, like I said, Shanna did a thing on it, actually. She had a kind of a big group that was following her because she was posting a lot of pictures and stuff. And she did a thing on, I don't remember what it cost us. Granted, fuel was cheaper, but we kept track of the fuel cost, the food cost. Like we were going to Walmart and just doing like a bucket of chicken, and it was like $4.99 for a huge bucket of chicken, where you get like 4 different chicken,
legs,
wings,
chicken
legs, waist, and all that, and that's what we would eat for dinner, and then if we had any left over, very rarely, because if you've seen my son, then you understand that, but so we would budget travel, and I got a cheap cab over camper so I could still haul my rig. And I had an old trailer with house trailer axles, and 17 spare tires, because those things blow up like it's going out of style all the time.
Maypops.
Yeah, they are Maypops for sure. They are. They're not even Maypops. They are Gonna Pops. Yeah, yeah. But we would take, what most people would consider big vacations for very reasonable amounts of money, extremely reasonable amounts of money, and so that allowed the kids to be able to experience a lot of the country,
Right.
and then we could still, like I said, homeschool them, and then so they're still getting their school done, and a lot of times even towards their high school years, when sports, kind of gets in the way at that point, because they were both very active in sports. But even then, they would be like, they would want to really work hard on the 2 weeks that I was gone.
Yeah.
So that when I came home, it's like, hey, I can take a week off and hang out with Dad. And we're going to do this.
So you were really you were making the sacrifices in life in those 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, you made a sacrifice so that you could give back, so that you could be with your family and have the things you wanted. I mean,
definitely. Even through the growth of even doing that, like when I left from the drilling side, I'm still on the drilling side, but went to the directional side. That job didn't have a schedule. So that first year, that was a tough year for all of us. I worked like 324 days that year. I was away from home.
No.
And that was like this.
Tough.
Yeah. I missed a whole year of my kids' life, and I was like, we can't do this.
Yeah, that'll push you right on out the door.
Yeah. And I was working way longer hours than 12 and a half. There was some days I was up. I've learned that I'm good for about 3 days. I can be about up for 3 days straight before I start seeing shadow monsters. I get way too loopy. Yep.
And I'm sure that probably pushed you right on into full-time automotive and what you're doing now, like being gone that long. And
well, having guys working under you, especially in a job that if you mess up, lives are
at risk.
At risk. You really learn how to teach people. Because I would say learn how to be a leader, but really you learn how to teach people, because you can tell somebody to do something 1,000 times, but and you can demand it however you want to say it, but if you actually show them, hey, I like to do it this way, and this is why, because if I've done it this way, this happens, or I've done it this way and this happens. So if we can just do this every time, then we know this works really well, and it's the most efficient. if you got an idea, I'm willing to
Yes,
think it over and let's try it. But if it fails, we're going back to this.
Yeah.
right.
And sometimes, people still need that. They're like, hey, I need to try it my way. And then see if it, and sometimes it worked, very rarely, because it's kind of the same thing. Like I would listen to the older guys in my profession that had 3 or 4 fingers missing, and
Don't do that.
yeah, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure whatever he says don't do, I'm not doing that. Yeah, but yeah, so it taught me the value of how to teach. And then that's one thing I really like to instill in my videos is add things like that, where it's like, hey, here's a trick that works for me.
Right.
Here's something that's worked for me,
yeah.
Over the years, or this this little shortcut over here, or this, that, and the other. Because anytime you can save time or have something that you're not going to have to go back and work on, it's always going to be a plus.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So after the oil field and all the other things that you did in your career, when did it come to the point of getting a camera and starting doing these videos that you do?
So the funny part about that is even before I got in the oil field, which I gave half my life to it, but I actually had a camera even in high school, and I loved sharing what I was doing. So I would take pictures, and then I picked up one of the little like 8mm cameras that takes those little tapes, and at a pawn shop, I think, and I would film, and I still have it. I have this little Sony editor thing, and you'd put the tape, you'd hook it to your tape recorder and to the editor and watch it on your TV, and you'd cut it up.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh man.
Fast forward and rewind, and you'd make another tape in the VCR out of
That's
your
cool.
recorder. So I was doing that even basically in my teens. I think I started really doing that at probably 17.
You were way ahead of the game.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
well, I
for
enjoyed
real.
doing it. And then even when YouTube came out, I was filming trails because like I helped put in, one of the first trails we did here for summer camp was Chinaman's Gulch, which is now renamed Yancing. But next to it is Carnage Canyon. And that was one of the trails I helped put in. And so I filmed that one time, like filmed driving that trail, and put it on YouTube when YouTube wasn't monetized. YouTube was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And that video got like 24,000 views, which was unheard of at the
Really?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And didn't, obviously I made negative dollars on
Yeah.
it. But because like I said, there was not even an opportunity for monetization, but it was just, hey, I get to share what
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
doing,
yeah.
and
Absolutely.
get people motivated. They're like, oh yeah, I need to build that, or I need to, get into that sport, and so I think it's a great way. I think it's a great family sport. I think it's a lot more of a family sport than most other sports out there. A lot of them are single person sports. I mean, or even team sports, but only so many people can be involved. Where in the off-road world, anybody can be involved. It doesn't really matter what your physical stature is or what, you can go out and enjoy nature. So yeah, for that was, that was just,
That's how it all started, with a little
Yeah.
8mm camera.
Yeah, that
in
was
high
really
school.
how it started. And then, doing it on the side, and then just posting stuff up. And then it just, I was like, hey, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. And then,
Well, it really seems like you really wanted to just share with everybody else what you were passionate about, like what you loved and how much you loved it.
Mm.
And, whether y'all love it or not, I want to share this with you because this is
Yeah.
my passion, whether it was working on the car, building the car, driving the car, all the things that go into play with it. Like, I just want to share that with the world.
yeah. Well, and I think, I think everybody deep down wants something they can leave for the next generation, right? Like you could say leaving a legacy, but they want something they could leave, like, hey, it was super cool that, somebody did this or somebody
Mhm.
did that. And so, I hope that, I try to build videos where even, 5, 10, 15 years from now, they might be beneficial to a kid that's like, hey, I don't have any money, but hey, this guy Colt built this thing. He showed me how to trick to fix this thing that cost me $0 or whatever. I just need to drill a hole here, or or do this or whatever. And so that's one of the things, just because I've been there,
right, and it allows you to give back.
Yeah, then it's like, hey, I want to make sure that other people can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So all things considered, taking into account everything you've learned and the knowledge you've gained over the years, if you were to sit down with 20-something-year-old Colt, what advice would you give him?
It probably went to deaf ears. I remember being even in my teens, and it's like, so as a kid, like everybody has a thing, right? I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a policeman. I wanted to be a ninja. Mm-hmm. Why a guy my size want to be a ninja? That's completely impossible.
You'll never be quiet.
No, yeah, you're going to hear me coming miles and miles away. I'm a mouth breather, like all the bad things, right? And but I would jump off the roof, and I'd just like, I could just Batman roll, and I would, 2 stories, whatever. Like I jumped off rocks. We climbed around, in all kinds of cool places, and I just felt springy, and of course the old guys are like, your knees are gonna hate you, and I'm like, whatever, old man. And then here I am now with 2 bum knees. But yeah, so I wish I could say I could go back and tell myself, hey, but at that age, 20-year-old me, I think I still had too much testosterone going, and it's like, no, I'm gonna figure it out on my own, and and I think most guys would agree to that. I think most people are at that age, or you're just
hard-headed and stubborn.
You're gonna conquer the world.
I got this. I don't need your input.
Like, exactly.
Let me do
especially,
it.
Well, I mean, even like I said, I graduated high school early. In the summers, me and a couple of buddies of mine, we had our own house. Like I was working then, even in school. That's when I really first learned how long I could stay up without going to sleep, because I was in one of the towns that we weren't too far of, Cripple Creek. They had just turned it into a gambling town. It's an old mining town, still a mining town.
Yeah.
But they turned it into a gambling town to try to revive the town. And I'd clean casinos from 2 to 8 in the morning. I still went to school.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, you get out of school, you hang out with your friends, then you're like, oh no, I got to go to work.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things with my parents, a little bit different than others, is they had me and my brother really, really late in life. And so it was kind of a different, we were raised a little different, because while they still did stuff with us, there was, it was more of a, they were laid back, they were at that age where they were, I remember doing that kind of stuff.
If he lives,
they're almost like, it's almost like having grandparents versus parents, so, yeah, it was a little bit different. So we, I got in trouble for not, letting them know where I was a few times, but not a whole lot. But I do remember, being married with a daughter and calling my parents and asking them where my brother was, because I couldn't get a hold of him. And they're like, and he was still in school. And they're like, I don't know, we haven't seen him for like 3 or 4 days. And I'm like, yeah, I remember getting in trouble for that. You haven't seen your kid for 3 or 4 days, and he lives at home. Like, so yeah, kind of a different time, but and a different type of being raised. I think most parents don't let their kids out of their sight anymore, and mine were on the complete other end. Like I was talking about the other day, is my dad used to, I used to have him drop me off in the woods, and I would just go hike in the woods and camp for days on end. You build a whole new respect for the woods when you camp in it by yourself. You hear everything. I mean, it's a whole nother level. It really is. And but that's why I've always had a hard time with like people getting lost, at least in the mountains, because I could understand it in some place like maybe even in Alaska, but you keep walking. If you just keep walking, you always find a road.
Eventually
you'll always find a road. Yeah. And then I would find a road, and then I would, because I would go straight into the woods. It's like I want to go find stuff, and I found some really cool stuff. I found neat lakes. I found, obviously it's before Google Earth where you could really choose where you wanted, but I found caves and all kinds of stuff. Came across plenty of animals all the time, but you'd always find a road. And then I'd hike up the road till I found a house, and then I would knock on doors until somebody answered, and then I'd be like, "Hey, do you mind if I use your phone?"
I got a call for a ride.
Yeah, and then I would call my parents, and they'd, and be like, "I have no idea where I'm at," and they'd, people would be like, "Oh, well, this is our address, kid," and then
Dad come scoop you up.
He'd come pick me up.
That's cool.
And so it's just a different time.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think that builds from that experience and your wheeling experience. That's why this week was so great, because you have all these destinations and all these areas that you've explored. Where somebody like me from Louisiana comes up here, hasn't really seen a ton of Colorado. I mean, this past 3 or 4 days have just been absolutely unreal. It's been awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And to go off of that, not only knowing where to go, but knowing every single thing about where we're
Yeah, the
at.
history of it.
The history
Yeah.
lessons we got were probably better than school for sure. It was better than school. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
There was a true summer camp to learn about some history of Colorado and the trails, which was
awesome.
a huge plus to the trip.
Yeah,
that was already awesome. So,
Well, thanks.
Colt, I appreciate you doing this with us today. I appreciate a great week. If you guys want to check out the trip, you check it out on Colt Builds It, and then it'll also be on Fab Rats and Trailmators YouTube as well.
Yep, they'll both have it on theirs as well. Yep.
Awesome.
yeah, Colt, thanks for having us, brother.
Yeah,
we had a great time this week.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
it
you
was
guys
awesome.
for coming. It was
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
really fun to have you.